Okay, so here we have the coil, and this is still the stock coil. As you could tell, it has the rivets right there, and so we got to drill out these rivets in order to get it on out and install the new one into there. So let's drill this out.
This is a Chucky Beat production.
There's the new hardware installed. We just gotta install it onto the engine now. So now that coil is installed there, back in there. So hopefully now we should get a start up. All right, here we go. Still no luck. So now I'm gonna go ahead and try changing out the crank sensor. I heard it's a possible sensor that may cause a non-start issue, so I did purchase that as well, just because I wanted to go ahead and just do that maintenance so it won't break down on me in the future. So let's go ahead and change that out. Here is the old crank sensor, and here's the new one. AC Delco 888-64687. This sensor is held on by an 8mm bolt. Let me go ahead and show you the location. Right here by the crank is going to be the location of the sensor. There's the crank sensor installed. Hopefully it turns on now, so let's give it a try. Still nothing. Alright, so I don't know if it was caught on the camera or not, but I was able to go ahead and get the motor started up. What it is, it just has a weak spark. I'm gonna go ahead and just purchase some new spark plug wires, cap and rotor, and there's also a cam sensor that's about 30 bucks as well, so might as well just change that out. Again, this truck has been sitting for quite a while, so just go ahead and replace everything. It's really not an issue. I actually feel more secure if everything's changed out, because I would hate to be driving it somewhere late at night or, you know, on the way to work, something like that, and it just breaks down, not sure what it is, trying to troubleshoot and just find out it's just a sensor that could have been replaced easily. So gonna get that all ordered up, and then hopefully it should have a easier start. Alright guys, so we're working back on the Suburban again. Going to be changing out the cap and rotor on the distributor, as well as the cam sensor under there, and also going to be changing out the spark plug wires. I'm not going to change out the spark plugs just yet, because I do want to throw some seafoam in there, and then after I do the seafoam, I'll put in some new spark plugs. Hopefully this should be fixing the starting issue I've been having. As well, I do have a new module for the distributor, which does sit right on over here. I just haven't installed that yet. So going to be taking the intake tubing off of the motor here, and then we'll be able to work onto the back of the motor. Going to be changing out the spark plug wires, so can disconnect the coil and as well the other spark plugs on the cap. Going to take off the cap here for the distributor. That's going to be held on by one of these Torx. I believe it's this smaller one right here. One right here. They're not on there very tightly, and they shouldn't be on there very tight. And then there's one in the rear here where this little slot is at. There goes the cap. And now the white plastic there, that's going to be a rotor. That as well is held on by one of the Torx screws, and these as well are pretty loose on there, or not loose, but shouldn't be tight on there. So now the cam sensor, if you see that plug and this sensor right here, that's the cam sensor. That as well is going to be held on by the little Torx screws there. Now for the purpose of this video, the distributor is already turned to where it should be at. There's a slot in the distributor here, if you can see. It has to line up with the sensor. The sensor does have a part where it does protrude upwards, so you have to line the little slot with that sensor, and now should be able to stick the sensor up and get it out of its location, to get it out of the distributor. And there it is right there. So now just disconnect it, and there is the cam sensor. So there is the spark plug wires completely taken out with the cap, the rotor, and the cam sensor. Here's the new parts that I'm using. Everything OEM, AC Delco, and we got Delphi Technologies. The new rotor right here compared to this, I already scratched off some of the corrosion there, but compared to that new one, and the part number 1045247. Also have the new cam sensor, part number 888-64355. New spark plug wires 888-62381. And the new cap, the brand new points on there, no corrosion. Delphi Technologies, part number DC20010. And you can see this cap here had quite a bit of corrosion. Again, I did already scratch some of it off. Just as easy as it was to uninstall, it's going to be easier just to reinstall. Of course, we're just going to have to match the wires up correctly. And the final thing I got to do, I'm going to change out this sensor here. This is what sends the signal to the distributor on when to fire. Along, it's connected with the crank sensor. So going to be changing this out to a new one. And let me show you guys that real quick. The new ignition module here from Delphi Technologies as well, DS10039. That's all it is right there, guys. And these kind of heat up over time and start to become bad. Well, that's naturally what it does. It produces heat whenever sending that signal, and it does have like a cooling pad along with it. And here's some thermal silicone grease for whenever we install the new part on there. So let's take the old one off. It's real simple, just like 2 screws. Start with the ignition module. Let's just unplug it. There it is. There's a screw right there. I'm going to have another screw. I have a 5.5 mil, which comes off as one piece. There we are. Just go ahead and wipe off some of that old grease from 96. Also, there's some old grease on this cooling plate as well, so just go ahead and wipe that on off. Alright, so there it is. The grease is wiped on off pretty good. And so now I'm going to be reinstalling the grease on this backing plate and as well here, and then we'll install the sensor and put it right back on. And there's the thermal silicone grease on there. Unfortunately, the Suburban is still not turning on. My dad was going through some of the wiring and found this wire loom by the header, and which has a pink wire which is totally disconnected. So I gotta fix this wire, make sure all the other wires are okay. Looks like we have some of the insulation that has been kind of burned through there. That heat protection there is old, so I'm not sure that it is doing the best job. Alright, so the wires are fixed. Now, of course, I don't have a soldering iron out here, so I just twisted up the wires. You see that added in red wire to the pink. And down there, just put some tape on there. That's the only wire that was broken up. The other one that I had to put tape on just because it was exposed is this black wire. There's a black wire, thicker black wire. And right there you can see it running. But it was exposed a little bit, so I did put some electrical tape on that. I'm gonna reconnect everything on up here, and hopefully this doesn't make contact. I'll have enough slack to give it so it doesn't heat up again. As you guys had seen, the Suburban was still not starting even after fixing those wires that were exposed and brittle. I did replace the other 2 wires because they were quite brittle, but still it was not starting. So now the only other thing on the ignition that I did not touch was the distributor. And here is the final problem that I was having. If you guys can see, the gear is chewed up a little bit. I don't know if that's just over age. Again, this Suburban has 243,000 miles. And as well, when you spin it, it doesn't spin smooth. It gets stuck. It hits the cam sensor. You can hear it. So that is definitely giving me some issues. So what you want to do is set the crank to TDC, and then after it's on TDC, you're going to get some access to the back of the distributor. There's going to be this bracket here that is held on by a 13mm bolt. You're just going to loosen it, and then you could slide the bracket back and pull out the distributor. The new distributor that I decided to go with is from United Motor Products, part number 9362. And so the difference on that one is that it has an aluminum body. The OEM distributor is made out of plastic, so it's just going to give you that extra assurance that you're going to have a strong distributor and not have any issues with it breaking. So of course it has the new gear on there. It comes with the cam sensor as well as a cap and rotor. Once that is done and you got the distributor out, how you're going to put in the new distributor, because it has to be on TDC as well in order to run properly, or else your motor probably won't even start. The way you're going to drop it into the motor is, see this little arrow here? That arrow is going to line up with the edge of this little slot here for that cam sensor. And then so once you drop it into the motor, it's going to move a tad bit. It should drop in nice and easy. Of course, it's just going to be in the same position as you took out the old one. So you line it up there, drop it into the motor. It's going to turn slightly with the motor. It's going to turn right about there. The arrow is going to be pointing right into that little slot, and the cam sensor is going to be flush up against this line, up on the little protrusion there, and then everything should be on TDC. Plug everything back in, put the cap and rotor, and you should be all set to go for a startup. Alright, so now here we go. It's the one-turn Suburban. Alright, so it starts right on up, man. Running real good, real smooth. So as you guys can tell, it's running real smooth right now. Go ahead and turn it off. Real smooth, man. So brand new ignition and fuel setup.